Hi friends, my name is Gloria and welcome back to another video. This is going to be a follow-up to the first video that I made about Nonfiction November. I'm so excited for Nonfiction November because I love reading nonfiction and I have a very large nonfiction TBR, so I'm just hoping to read a ton in November. If you don't know, Nonfiction November is a big initiative hosted by a book olive to get people to read more nonfiction, and I'm excited to participate this year. There are 4 words that can be loosely interpreted and books can fit into those words if you want to challenge yourself. So the first video I made was book recommendations that I had for those prompts, books that I have read before, but today I'm going to be talking about my TBR, my books that I want to read that could fit these words. I have a lot, and I'm gonna briefly mention my pile of possibilities for November that I'm very excited for. So I'll start with the word style. Now, funnily enough, Olive from a book Olive is also reading this book that I'm gonna mention, Will by Will Smith, but she's reading it for the word industry because he works in the music and film industry. That could totally work and totally make sense. When I was creating this list, I put it in style because I thought the style of the book was really cool. I love the cover, and I think like Will Smith is the celebrity, so he's like stylish. I think I was more looking for words for style rather than industry because I have a lot of books for industry. So I'm gonna use it for style, but it could work for both. This is gonna be a November release, so it's not out yet, and I'm very excited for when it comes out. I plan on definitely reading this one. I'm very intrigued. I don't read that many celebrity memoirs, but I am so interested in what Will Smith has to say. I know he's a very thought-provoking man, and he has created a lot of interesting content on his social media channels. I feel like I would love to just learn more about him and what he has to say in this book. The next 4 books for style have to do with lifestyle, which is how I'm interpreting this word. The first one being Laundry Love, Finding Joy in a Common Chore by Patric Richardson. I think I first heard Annie McNulty mention this in her channel for a possibility book that she might read, or maybe I just saw it on her Goodreads, but I just really want to read this. This sounds so cute and intriguing. I think it's just sort of like a reference book. I don't even know, it might be self-helpy, but it's just like finding love in laundry, which is actually one of my favorite chores to do. I don't mind doing laundry at all. I hate washing dishes. Probably need a book about how to find love in washing dishes because that's something that I don't have love. It just sounds cute and fun, and I would definitely read this. The next book that I really need to read is Digital Minimalism by Newport. This was on my list of 12 nonfiction books to read in 2021, and I haven't read that. I haven't read a lot of those books, but I need to make some progress, so I'm really hoping to pick this one up. I am very much interested in digital minimalism, taking a break from technology at times and stepping back and putting my phone away, and sometimes that's really hard to do. And so I am very intrigued to see what this author has to say on the topic, if there's any big takeaways, and I think this paired with this book, which is also on my list, Atomic Habits, I could actually pair the two and get something done and get something changed in my life. The next one is Atomic Habits by James Clear. I recently purchased this book to read alongside with my husband because we want to develop some good habits in our marriage and our routines and our daily lives, and I've only heard good things about this book. I'm excited to get to it, hopefully in November. It might be started in November, but probably not finished in 1 month because we read slowly together. And finally, for style, 7, An Experimental Mutiny Against Excess by Jen Hatmaker. This is maybe similar to a minimalism kind of takeaway. I'm also very interested in zero waste and just having less things that I don't need or want or use. I think this is taking a look at 7 different aspects of your life, eliminating extra stuff, creating a sense of more ease and contentment in your life, and clothes is one of the topics, so it kind of works for style. Clothes, spending, waste, food, possessions, media, and stress. Really hoping to learn something from this one and have really good takeaways. The next word is industry, and by far the word that I have all of the books fitting into because I feel like every single thing can be part of an industry. The first one being Midnight in Chernobyl, the untold story of the world's greatest nuclear disaster by Higginbotham. This was also on my 12 nonfiction books to read in 2021. I'm just saving all of them for November. I really want to read this. I am so intrigued to know more details about Chernobyl and what happened there. I've been putting off watching the HBO miniseries because I wanted to read this book first. One book that is on my list and was a total library find as I was putting books away at the library where I work work. I just saw this and I was like, this will work for industry, and it sounds really good. And that is Dreaming in Turtle, A Journey Through the Passion, Profit, and Peril of Our Most Coveted Prehistoric Creatures by Peter Laufer. All about turtles and how we treat turtles and how turtles are viewed. And I'm just very interested to learn more about the turtles. Another book that sounds very fascinating that I would love to read is American Baby, A Mother, a Child, and the Shadow History of Adoption by Gabrielle Glaser. I read Stranger Care by Sarah Centelles earlier this year and absolutely loved it. That was taking a look into the author's journey through foster care, trying to adopt, and it was very fascinating, very hard to read, but I really loved taking a look into her story and what she had to say and what she learned from her experience. And this just sounds really good, taking a look at the adoption industry as a whole and what's behind it. It sort of feels very secretive to me, and I haven't done much research into it. I don't know if me and my husband want to adopt in the future, but it's something that I think, you know, we're open to if that were to arise. If this is going to be anything along the lines of how Stranger Care was written and how that story was told, I think I'm gonna love it. One that sounds very fun and I would love to learn about is Becoming Trader Joe, How I Did Business My Way and Still Beat the Big Guys by Joe Coulombe. This is about the man who created Trader Joe's, which is a large grocery store chain in the US. I think it's more West Coast. I think it started in California, but it's one of my favorite places. A lot of people love it. It is such a happy environment and such a fun grocery store to go to. You never know what goodies and snacks you're gonna find. The employees are the nicest humans alive, and it's just very fun to go to Trader Joe's. So if you ever find yourself in the vicinity of a Trader Joe's, I would recommend going inside. But I would love to know more about this business and the behind the scenes of the company. A book that is perfect for industry because it's in the title is How Music Got Free, The End of an Industry, The Turn of the Century, and the Patient Zero of Piracy by Stephen Richard Witt. This is a recommendation from none other than Olive herself. She recommended this book in one of her videos. I think she read it quite a while ago, but it just sounds very fascinating. I grew up in the world of LimeWire and pirating music on my iPod and like burning CDs and all that kind of stuff. So I'm just very curious to learn more about the industry and read this book. It sounds very good. And then finally for industry, The Diary of a Bookseller by Sean Bythell. I can't really remember where I first heard about this book, but it is about a owner of a bookstore in Scotland, one of the biggest secondhand bookstores in Scotland, and just different experiences that he has had as a bookstore owner and the different customers. I've just heard good things about this book. I thought it would be like a cute and heartwarming book, a book about books, you know, so you can't go wrong there. It just sounds kind of fun to learn about the behind the scenes of being a bookstore owner. The next word is collection. A lot of people are interpreting this, I think, as a collection of essays or collection of poetry, which could totally work. I recommended a collection of poetry in my recommendation video, but I'm gonna go a little bit of a different route with my 3 possibilities. The first one being Word by Word by Corey Stamper. I think this is also a recommendation from Olive. I get all of my nonfiction recs from her, but this is about the secret life of dictionaries, and dictionaries are a collection of all the words out there. So I would love to learn more. I've heard this is a fantastic book and I'm very excited to dive into it. Another nonfiction that I see a lot of people talk about is The Feather Thief by Kirk Wallace Johnson. This is a true crime nonfiction surrounding a heist in the Natural History Museum, I believe. It's definitely one of those booktube darlings, and it just sounds really fun and interesting to learn about this heist that happened at a museum. And then the last word for collection is Plunder, a Memoir of Family, Property, and Nazi Treasure by Menachem Kaiser. This is about how the Nazis were collecting, really stealing treasures from other people, and I think this is about a family who's trying to recover that family treasure. I watched The Monuments Men a while ago when it came out about how the Nazis collected different art treasures and whatnot. This book just sounds really good. I heard Vanessa from Split Reads read it and recommend it, so that's how it got onto my list. And finally, the last word is treatment. I'm interpreting this both as treatment of individuals and how people have been treated, as well as medical treatment. So I have books that fit both of those kind of vibes. The first one being The Immortal Life of Henrietta Lacks by Rebecca Skloot. I think this is also kind of a booktube nonfiction must read at this point. I've heard a lot of people talk about it. The little blurb here says, doctors took her cells without asking. Those cells never died. They launched a medical revolution and a multi-million-dollar industry. More than 20 years later, her children found out. Their lives would never be the same. Henrietta was a poor farmer, and she had ancestors who were slaves living in the South, and her DNA was taken from her her without her knowledge and used in experimentation and in the medical industry. I know that there is a TV series or a movie on HBO with Oprah in it that I would love to watch and pair the two together. Another one that I need to read is Stiff by Mary Roach, The Curious Lives of Human Cadavers. This was one of my first books that I ever purchased since joining BookTube and doing my first haul, and it just sounds so interesting. I read Smoke It's in Your Eyes by Caitlin Doughty, which is another recommendation I have. I loved learning more about this like death industry, what happens to our bodies when we die, and this is all about cadavers. From what I've heard of this author, which I would love to read this and more of her works, is that she writes very cleverly and witty, and it's kind of respectful but lighthearted at the same time. Another possibility for me is The Doctor's Blackwell by Janice P. Nomura, How Two Pioneering Sisters Brought Medicine to Women and Women to Medicine. I recently read Women in White Coats, and the Blackwell sisters were mentioned a lot in that book, so I'm curious how this one will be different. I'm assuming this will just focus on the Blackwell sisters and their story and their childhood, maybe looking more specifically into their lives. But the Blackwell sisters were some of the very first women doctors in America in the 1800s. Another nonfiction that I would love to get to soon is Inferno, A Memoir of Motherhood and Madness by Catherine Cho. Annie McNulty has not stopped talking about how good this book is, and it just sounds right up my alley. It is also a shorter nonfiction, which is nice if you're anything like me who's trying to cram in a lot of nonfiction in November. This is about a woman who has recently become a mother, and she experiences psychosis and breaks away from reality and then is taken to a psychiatric hospital. So it is her story, and I'm assuming the treatment that she received for that. Sounds so fascinating. Another one I would love to get to is Disfigured on Fairy Tales, Disability, and Making Space by Amanda Leduc. This book I saw Books and Lala mention and loved, and I think this is also potentially a collection of stories, or chapters are broken up kind of with different themes and topics, but really taking a look into how disfigurement and disability has been represented in our media and the stories we've been told, particularly fairy tales and in Disney movies. And I think the author also talks about her own experience and her own disability with cerebral palsy, and it just sounds like a book that I could learn a lot from. The last book that I'll mention is The New Jim Crow, Mass Incarceration in the Age of Color Blindness by Michelle Alexander. I absolutely loved watching 13th, which is a documentary on Netflix, and I believe that the author was interviewed for that documentary, and this is taking a look into our prison systems in America, which is full of injustice, really has turned into a business which is getting particularly Black men and other individuals into the system and doing very little to get them out and actually rehabilitated. So this will definitely dive into anti-racism and the Black Lives Matter social justice movement. It'll cover some history and politics behind the scenes of our prison systems as well. I'm very excited to read this. I think this will be very eye-opening and a very important read. All right, so those are all of my possibility books that I could pick up in the month of November. This has been one of the most fun months to plan reading for. I just really enjoyed going through my TBR and then pulling books off that fit these words, so I am just so excited. Please let me know in the comments if you've read any of them and would recommend them, or think I should prioritize one over the other since I have such a large possibility list. I want to read them all one day, but I know I can't read them all in 1 month. Thanks so much for watching and for tuning in, and I hope you pick up a nonfiction book in November if it suits your fancy, and I will see you guys in another book video soon. Bye!